let's start with what was a terrific day at Happy Valley. Yeah, I mean, that was what I think college football is all about. I know that one fan base and most of the people there left disappointed because Penn State falls to Ohio State 20-13, but it's just a great college football environment. Every time I'm in Happy Valley, I feel like it is a great college football environment. I was certainly thrilled to be there. I know that some of the Penn State fans don't like the kick at noon, but listen, that's the way the cookie crumbles, and that's where we give you our premiere broadcast. So that's where we're at noon, and that's what we're going to do for the foreseeable future. So let's maybe get used to it. It was incredibly encouraging if you're an Ohio State fan for what went on Saturday. Coming into that ball game, there were a lot of questions surrounding Ohio State, surrounding Ryan Day. And a lot of them I can't argue with because of the way that they played in their two previous games, Oregon and Nebraska, and what's happened in previous big games under Ryan Day dating back to, 2022, maybe even the national championship in 20. These losses to Michigan, the losses in the big games, Georgia comes to mind. Like, there had been a narrative built over the last couple of years that Ryan Day wasn't winning these games, these top 5 games. Okay, so that's how Ohio State came into this game. And to be quite honest with you, based on the way that they had played, specifically on the offensive line, against Oregon in the second half without Josh Simmons, and for the entire 4 quarters against Nebraska in the game that I called last week, I had my doubts, and they were serious doubts, that this team was, in fact, a national champion caliber team. I had my doubts. At the beginning of the year, I felt very comfortable that Ohio State was one of the 4 best teams, probably one of the 2 best teams with Georgia at the outset of the season. And coming into this game against Penn State, I had my doubts. I thought this was going to be Penn State's best chance that I had seen in the last couple of years. I've called all these games, and I haven't felt this positive from a Penn State perspective in a long time, because of the questions specifically at the offensive line for Ohio State. If you need me to follow up on that, Josh Simmons got hurt. They're starting left tackle. They had to shuffle all things around, and all of a sudden, Donovan Jackson, the guard, he's out at left tackle, and Carson Hinsman, last year's center, is in at left guard. Both of those guys making their first start ever at those positions in Beaver Stadium against Penn State and Abdul Carter and that defensive line. And you're like, that doesn't sound good. So I had my doubts. And I come out of that game watching those 4 quarters of football and the way that they played up front against that defensive front and in that environment. And now I'm bullish. I think Ohio State is absolutely national championship caliber based on what they did in those 4 quarters with their offensive line. They came in as a mess and they left as an answer, cohesive and ready to go. 40 carries, 176 yards, including what you're watching right now, which is just running it right down Penn State's throat when they got the ball with about 5 minutes to go on their own 1-yard line. Defense creates a big stand, and then they just decided to run the football, and they ended the game with the ball on the field. That is a championship mindset, okay? When you know that you're going to run the football, and they know you're going to run the football, and you still do it, that is eating up front. And they played terrific. I was so impressed with how they played with that brand new offensive line. And trust me when I say it was brand new, it was brand new. Jenny had talked to Donovan Jackson. I had talked to their coaches all week long, and there was a lot of, well, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Again, Donovan Jackson had never played tackle before in his life. And he's sitting out there at left tackle against Penn State. Now, was it perfect? No. Was he dominant the entire game? No. No, he wasn't. They gave up, at one point, there was like 3 straight third downs that they gave up sacks. But when it counted, they could run the football. And Ohio State, with the ability to run the football, is a scary football team. That's just the bottom line. because you know that they're going to be able to throw it. You know that they're going to be able to be creative. You know that they've got weapons on the outside with Ibuka and Jeremiah Smith, and Ennis caught a touchdown, and Carnell Tate went for 100 against Nebraska. They're loaded on the outside. We know that. We know their backs are great. The question was about this offensive line, and those questions were serious, and they were answered in an emphatic way and in a positive fashion for the Buckeye fans. So I came into this game, serious doubts that this was a national championship caliber team. I left that game. This is absolutely a national championship caliber team based on the way that those 5 guys played up front. Other takeaways from this game. Ohio State did not have to have their quarterback play great in order to win a matchup style top 5 game. That's a revelation because in the last few years, it's been the exact opposite. Their quarterback had to play great. And guess what? Will Howard probably played his worst game. 16 of 24, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 turnovers, including a pick 6 that put him down 10-0 right off the jump. I tell you, when Zion Tracy ran in for that touchdown, the decibel level was through the roof. Through the roof. And it wasn't his first pass attempt. I think it was his first pass attempt. And later in the game, he's running inside the 5. He's trying to score, and he gets stripped. And all of a sudden, there's Zakee Wheatley. Bam, stripping the ball out. It goes over the pylon. It's a touchback for Penn State. Those are massive turnovers. And normally, in the last few years, based on the way that the defense was set up for Ohio State, that the run game was set up for Ohio State, if the quarterback played that way, they would lose. And yet, on Saturday, their quarterback didn't play great, and they won. See, to me, that's a revelation. That's a confidence booster, in particular with a patchwork offensive line that now moves forward with some confidence, with a defense that stepped up and played incredible again against Penn State, second straight year that they've done that, and the quarterback didn't even play great, and they still won. Now, listen, for Will, this is a huge positive because it's a learning experience, and I'll just say, I felt like he was too emotional going into the game. Okay, this is a touch of a side note, but earlier in the week, Will Howard had made a comment. In fact, it was right after they played Nebraska and beat Nebraska, and he said, can't wait to play at Penn State. I was a fan of theirs. I wanted to be recruited there. I wanted to play there. That was my dream school. They didn't recruit me, and I guess we'll find out if I was good enough to play there next Saturday. That's a great sentiment, and everyone's like, yeah, Will, chip on your shoulder, let's go. And you know what that gets you as a quarterback when you actually step on the field in between the lines? Nothing. It's a Saban nothing speech. That's what it gives you. You see, only details and execution are rewarded on the field for a quarterback. And when you're playing through emotion, typically you don't execute and you don't play within the details. I actually think that's why Will played poorly. Again, he played probably his worst game. And he said this, by the way, afterwards, but he probably played his worst game of the season. And yet they still won. So you can chalk it up to learning experience. And now he knows he doesn't have to be Superman, number one. And number two, don't let that happen again. Don't play through emotion, play through passion. Those are two different things. See, passion makes you invest in the details, invest in the execution of the offense. Emotion, that gets you all haywire, and that's not where you can play from. I mentioned the defense, and the defense was the defense that we expected to see at the start of the year. Excuse me. This is a defense that last year, I remember doing the spring game, and I'm down there with a microphone, and Steve, who's obviously with us here on the show and with me every single Saturday. Steve Owens is second to none. This guy is as good as it gets in the industry, and I'm thankful that he works with me. And we were talking last spring, and it's like, is anyone going to score on Ohio State? And the answer was kind of like, probably not. Because when this defense is playing well, in particular up front with their defensive tackles, it becomes increasingly difficult to just move the football and to score on this D. Now, they were shredded against Oregon, and it was like alarm bells, panic meter. We need to change things. We need to get more aggressive against Nebraska. And there was some amount of questioning whether this defense could actually be a dominant defense. And guess what? They turned into a dominant defense on Saturday in a top 5 matchup on the road. They were outstanding. They were absolutely outstanding. I love their safety play. I think Caleb Downs is one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in college football. I thought he was terrific last year as a true freshman, and he's only gotten better at Ohio State. He's terrific. And just remember, and I said this on the broadcast for those of you that watched, and I mean, if you're listening to this, I'm assuming that you watched the game. I brought up a comp, and it's not just a straight player comp, but it's an impact comp, and it's a style comp for Caleb Downs. When I was a true freshman at Colorado, I had just left baseball. I walk on at Colorado. I'm not the starting quarterback yet, and we're sitting there, and so I'm just on the sidelines. And USC comes into Boulder, and this is Pete Carroll's USC team in 2002. All right, 2002. This is Carson Palmer's year. This is about to turn the corner for USC, and they're about to make a run. And in that game, Colorado had Chris Brown and a strong running game. And this safety was just like downhill, like a rolling ball of butcher knives, like every play. And we were like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And on film, we're like, man, this is the best safety we've seen in a long time. That safety was Troy Polamalu at USC. That's the same type of impact and style that I see now when I watch film of Caleb Downs and when I'm calling his games. He's downhill. He's always making sure tackles. And in a large part, he kind of took away Tyler Warren. Now, he didn't have to do it alone because they have other veteran safeties that can help. Lathan Ransom being back from injury certainly helps. Jordan Hancock was spectacular. And the fact that Penn State doesn't have great wide receivers on the outside means that the safeties for Ohio State could just focus on the middle of that offense, and they could focus on Nick Singleton and they could focus on Tyler Warren. That's why Warren did not have a big day for Penn State. I know that's a frustration for Penn State fans, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But the safety play for Ohio State was outstanding, and Caleb Downs was outstanding. And then Lathan Ransom on that fourth down, he was outstanding. And it was a terrific little defensive structure that Jim Knowles kind of created for that fourth down stop. And let's get to that fourth down stop. Late in the game, there's, what is it? We're getting inside of 7 minutes now. Tyler Warren has just taken a direct snap, run it 33 yards around the left end, and now they've got 1st and goal inside the 5. And remember, they had 1st and goal inside the 5 to end the first half, and they threw a pass to Trey Wallace that gets picked off. Now, that's a little bit different because, it's the first half and it was first down. But here you've got 1st and goal. 1st and goal, what do they do? Katron Allen right up the middle. Okay, now what do you do on 2nd down? Katron Allen right up the middle. Okay. Now they'll get creative, right? And I'm saying it in the booth. They're going to spin somebody out of here. They're going to cross up, do something. Now 3rd and goal, what do we get? Katron Allen right up the middle. And I'm like, hold on a second. Well, it's certainly 4-down territory because you can't expect the ball back with the way they're running it. Now it's inside of 6 minutes. And so I'm okay, now we're going to get the misdirection and everything with Tyler Warren. And what do we get? Regular pick play to one side, and then you come back and try to throw it to Dinkins, the tight end. That was the play selection for Penn State. Like, what are we doing? Like Andy Kotelnicki, we've been singing his praises all year for his creativity, the way that he gets the stars the ball. And so they've got 5 snaps inside the 5-yard line. 1 in the first half, 4 at the end of the game. And Singleton and Warren never touched the ball. That cannot happen. That cannot happen. I've watched every snap of Penn State this season on film. Their best, without a doubt, low red zone, I call it, so inside the 5, game plan is when they snap the ball to Ty Warren. He's reading stretch. He's diving over the top. He's throwing swing routes. He's running it. It was their most effective way to run the football in the game against Ohio State. He had just done it on 3rd and 6 for a 33-yard rush. And they didn't go to it on any snap inside the 5. They will lament that issue. And this was an issue that was supposed to be a directive coming in, that they would not go down without giving the ball to their best. And guess what? They go down without giving the ball to their best. My goodness, that's got to be frustrating for Penn State and Penn State fans because you feel like we have seen this movie before. And I'm emphatic about it because it's like it's right there for you. It's right there for you. I've also watched every single snap on film of Ohio State's defense. And this is where it becomes even more interesting to me that Penn State decided that that was going to be their game plan, first and goal inside the 5, is that in the 2 subsequent games that Ohio State's defense has played, they have had basically goal line stands against straight downhill interior runs. Nebraska tried it, got stopped on 4th down. It was a 4th down stop for Ohio State, total goal line stand. And Oregon couldn't punch it in at the end of the game and had to settle for a field goal because they couldn't run it straight at that interior of the defensive line. They settled for a field goal, which gave Ohio State at least a chance to drive down and kick a field goal to win. Now, it didn't end up working for Ohio State, but the defense gave them the chance. Those were the 2 previous games. So if you're watching that film, how in the world is that your low red zone game plan with a game on the line, 4th down? Like, this isn't even second quarter. You get inside the 5 and maybe you're trying some things. It's the 4th quarter. It's inside of 6 minutes. You might not get the ball back. It has to be your best. And I don't think it was. And I think that's what's frustrating from a Penn State perspective. I'm shocked that they didn't snap the football to Tyler Warren. One other just quick note, and they kept using that motion with number 71. Uwanya is his last name. Venga Uwanya is an athletic, high force player. He's 350 pounds, and they say that he produces more force than any other player based on his acceleration and his mass. Okay, that's fine, but he's also the starting left guard, and he was in motion on every one of those snaps. In order for him to be in motion, you have to put in the backup guard, J.B. Nelson. And this is nothing against J.B. Nelson, but that just means that your backup guard is in the game inside the 5-yard line against Ohio State deep into the 4th quarter, and you're running it straight behind the backup guard. If you want to run it straight, keep Uwanya in the game, your starting guard. You're motioning him out like you're going to try to do something creative, and then nothing creative materialized. I know that this is like harsh criticism, but I think Andy Kotelnicki would agree with me. Like, there's no way that Andy Kotelnicki slept well on Saturday night based on the way that those snaps happened inside the 5. When Singleton and Warren don't get touches, that's rough. So now it's 3 straight games that we've seen Ohio State's defense hold up inside the 5. So now in recent years, here's Penn State, and they've basically been beat 2 types of ways. And it's always Ohio State or Michigan. I'm talking about regular season games. And it's being beat one of 2 ways. Either it's Ohio State with Marvin Harrison being able to out-athlete them on the outside and just be better in the skill positions than they are. And Harrison goes crazy, and he's got 20 catches, and 19 of them go for first downs in the last couple of years. Or it's Michigan that can line up and just play bully ball and maul them to death. Okay, so those are the 2 ways. All right, they tried to go and attack and beat Ohio State. They haven't been able to do that because Ohio State has been superior athletically. And then Michigan caught them and passed them because they were superior physically. Well, guess what happened on Saturday? Ohio State took a page out of, and listen, they're going to hate hearing this, Michigan's playbook. They mauled them to death with a great run game and an offensive line that could get it done, in particular in those last 4 minutes when they needed it first and 10 from the 1-yard line. And they've got to run out the clock, and they were able to do that. So Ohio State mauled them, and now it's the exact same blueprint for Penn State. They are losing in the exact same ways. And here's what you look up and see is that this team doesn't lose to unranked teams, so they're probably going to end up 11-1 still. They're probably going to have a home game or close to it in the college football playoff. And here's the question that then needs to be asked. Great teams generally fix issues. We've seen that this year. Oregon struggled early in the season with their offensive line specifically. They changed things up. That's been fixed. Georgia has struggled with things and fixed it. Texas has struggled with things and fixed it. Ohio State has struggled with things and fixed it. Great teams fix issues. Will Penn State fix the issues? Because they're getting beat the same way. They don't get the ball to their stars, and then they either can't hold up physically on defense or someone is able to outskill them and end up winning the game. Penn State has to fix that, and they're likely going to have another opportunity, I think, at home in a playoff game against a team like, let's just say, like for an example, Notre Dame. I think there's a good chance that they play Notre Dame at home in the playoff. And then we find out if they've been able to fix any of these issues.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.